Hello ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my name is Fizz. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at some creatures that I do believe do need a TLC or are going to be getting TLC in one way or another, because a few weeks ago we have confirmed that we are getting a new TLC 3, and I would like to share some information that I think which creatures should and which ones shouldn't, and kind of like what they need. So let's take a look. Let's get started. Hello, welcome, my name is Fizz, welcome to the channel. So I wanted to make this video because there was a lot of creatures in the base game and also DLC that we'll get into that in a minute, about what, you know, there's a lot of them that are in the game, they're there for a reason, but they don't fit a niche anymore because they just are really overly underpowered, or they just look stupid because of their texturing of models. And I wanted to make this video because we do have a confirmed TLC 3 coming, and I wanted to showcase my honest opinion about what I think will be fixed and what also will be texturized and stuff. So let's start with the 3 categories that I want to talk about. Number 1 is usefulness. How useful is the creature as of right now in the base game? Okay, I'm talking about the island and also on other maps. No mods, no modifications or anything, just base game default settings. How useful is it? Number 2, the animation and sound. There's some creatures that have very janky animation, and also their sound quality is absurdly loud or absurdly doesn't seem right. So I want to address that as well. And number 3 is the last and most important one, is the modeling and textures. There's some creatures that will be in this list that have semi-okay models. There's others that need a complete new model or even new texturizing, right, if they don't want to actually do the modeling. So let's get started on the dinosaur herbivores. We're going to go through dinosaur herbivores, then the Carnotaurs, then mammals, and then we're going to do aquatics, and then we're going to do DLC, which is basically just Scorch Earth. Alright, so the first creature I want to just go over and talk about is the actual Packy. Now, as you know, the Packy's abilities are pretty straightforward. It has a kind of a hit butt attack, a run, and also kind of a jump. At the moment, it's honestly pretty useless. Why would you get something like this versus a Raptor? The Raptor has more flexibility and more damage than this. In my honest opinion, I think the modeling for this is pretty good. The animation and sounds are also pretty good, but I think the usefulness is lacking. What they could do with this is just add a very simple little thing about, just like the Dodic does. When you leave a Dodic near rocks, it harvests a stone. Why don't we have this kind of feature for the Packy? Maybe harvesting flint, or maybe even some sort of metal. Obviously, we have the Anki for the metal and flint already, but why don't we remove the usability of the Anki and move it to another creature that no one ever tames? The Packy. I think it would be a very cool and interesting thing, and it also wouldn't change much because honestly, no one tames the Packies anyways at the moment. Sure, they're cute and adorable, but they're no use in base game at right now. So that is my kind of change. I wouldn't change the, you know, animation or sound or anything of that or models. I would just change their usefulness, adding a auto harvesting feature for flint. Next, we have the Anki, the one I just mentioned in the Packy video. Basically, he's honestly a powerhouse, but there is a couple things I want to point out with this. For one, he does actually have some poor texturing and also modeling. If you look over to here, he's had this since day 1 of release. As you can tell, it is very kind of skewed, and it's smushing and stretching, and it doesn't look natural. And also, personally, his texturing is indeed outdated in my opinion. It could definitely use an overhaul of new texturing, and for say maybe even a little bit of a model fix. But other than that, its usefulness, it's absurdly good. Its sound and animation are also very good, but its modeling textures I definitely think needs a TLC update with its texturing, as I just showed you, and its modeling. But other than that, it is one of the best mounts in the game for usefulness. So if you do get rid of the flint gathering of it and put it on the Packy, it would still be good, but it just needs a modeling and a texture update. That's my honest opinion. Oh boy, the Stegosaur. Now, I know a lot of you probably have never even tamed one, nor honestly would, because for one, it's a very long tame on base game settings. It's a very long tame for a max level one, and for two, they're honestly not very useful in yeah, they don't do much. For one, let's go to number all right, the Stegosaurus. Let's start off by its usefulness. It's honestly just a pain in the butt to even tame. Base game, it takes a very long time without kibble to tame, and personally, when you get to the point when you're making kibble, you're not really going to want to tame a Stegosaur anyways. Unless you're kind of PvP, it does have some aspects for that, but other than that, it really isn't very useful for most gameplay, because at the time you would get one, you wouldn't need one anyways at your current level of playing. Number 2, animation and sound. The Stego definitely has some issues with some animations. For one, its turning radius and also the intersection of its scales at the top do intersect with each other when you're moving. And it's sound wise, I mean, it's not terribly too bad, but it definitely does sound out to date with all the other creatures. And if you listen to the Triceratops versus the Stego, you can definitely tell there's a huge difference in audio quality, and I definitely believe that the Stego does need that very badly. And last but not least, model and texturing. For one, I don't actually think the texturing is terrible on this, except for if you look at the underbody of the Stego, which I'll show you right now. Over here, you could tell there's an actual line of its stitching. This has been here since they've ever added this creature to the game, which has been base game. And also, there is also some other texturing problems that you can see here and there. Personally, I would love to see this kind of fixed, and also the modeling, it could be fixed, but it's not a terribly bad model per se. But yeah, that definitely could be fixed. Now, how can we improve the usefulness of this creature in base game? For one, why don't you make it as a kind of a herbivore pack creature? It does already have that in the dossier that it is a pack animal. Why don't you give it an actual pack bonus? And also, maybe why don't you give it a new attack animation, making it so that its tail is more of a frontal attack and doing some sort of different damage, right? It already does a knockback, but what if it does a slight bleed effect or even a flinch? You know, maybe add something new to the game that we have. I would think that'd be kind of cool. But other than that, I don't really know what else we could do with the Stego, because honestly, no one likes to tame them because they take so long, and at the moment that they're not useful. So if you have any comments, put them down below, because I would love to hear what you think about the Stego. Alright, the Brontosaurus. Now, I know a lot of people love this beautiful creature, and quite frankly, I do too. Its usefulness is actually quite more remarkable to be actually still useful. It gathers the most berries in a square radius, and it also can be built with a mobile base. Its animations and sound could be a little bit better. I definitely think its sound quality is definitely lacking. It's not up to par to what the standards of other creatures are, but that could be definitely fixed over just a little TLC. And modeling texture, I think it definitely needs a new complete overhaul of its modeling and texturing. For one, it definitely just looks very old, and it just, in its modeling, there's a lot of things problem with it. For one, let's look at right here. Just right here alone. Do you see that? That shouldn't be there. That's been there since it's been ever released. It's floating, okay? And here's another thing. You can actually see the stitching of the modeling. You gotta look real closely, but you can definitely tell it's been stitched together from different parts. So that is also a criteria I think it needs to be. And here's another spot right here, and as you can tell, when you look at the newer creatures, you don't see that because this was made differently than all the other ones. And honestly, that's it. I wouldn't really add anything else or take away its ability to gather crap tons of berries, and also its animation and sounds just be updated, but that would be updated with its modeling texture, because obviously they would be redoing the entire thing. So yeah, that's kind of it. I wouldn't take away or add anything to it. Just give it a new model and new animations and new sounds, and we'll be good to go. Alright, and lastly, the Diplo. This creature is basically absolutely useless in base game. Obviously, it does have a massive saddle, but no one tames it because it doesn't do anything else. It has basically no attack and no defense. Well, it does have a defense, I could say that. It does knock creatures back. But other than that, it had a huge variety of different attacks in the dev kit. For one, it had a stomp and a tail whip that could also whip its creatures back. Now, if they added to these to be base game, I think the Diplo would actually be a really cool before Bronto mount, right? You would get this before you get the Bronto, and then when you get the Bronto, you could get rid of this. It would be kind of a more of a tier creature. Right now, you don't have to get this creature for anything. It's useless. It does nothing. Its animations and sound are pretty much fine. They don't need to be tweaked or anything, and its modeling and texturing is also fine. I don't see anything wrong with it. It doesn't have any seams or anything. I just personally think it is a useless creature that needs a purpose in the game. There are so many creatures in the game now that have a purpose. This, however, does not. No one tames this for any reason except for a meme, because that's all it's good for. I take that back on the modeling textures. It does need a new texture update as well, because it does have seams, but its animation is still fine. I just think it definitely needs a new texturing. All right, next we're going over the Carnotaur. Usefulness, it's quite not really that useful. Granted, it is an upgrade to the Raptor, but if you're at that point, you're already going to be getting Rexes for base game, because this does not really offer too much. For one, it's a very slow mount, and also it doesn't do that much damage. You could get roughly 2 to 3 Raptors and it will do more damage already than this, and quite frankly, I don't think you should be spending your time taming something that isn't that very useful. Obviously, the Raptor got a TLC and the Rex got a TLC last time, so definitely this guy is missing out on that TLC love. Animations and sounds. Animation is not too bad. It definitely could use some reworking, but its sound quality is horrendous. It has the most loudest footsteps in the game, louder than a damn Giga, and it's also equal as bad as the Allosaur footsteps. It definitely could use a sound tweaking on those, and also just probably an entire sound rework, because it also does sound dated to not be up to standards to what we have now with creatures that we've been getting added through DLCs. Its modeling and texturing is horrendous. Its model is super out of date, and it honestly just looks very bad. Its texturing are also very bad, because most of the time, if you're looking at it very closely, it's very blurry, and it's not up to the standards of new creatures that we have right now, including its damn teeth. Its teeth are like just polygons. It's disgusting and it's awful. It definitely needs a new update. I highly recommend, if you want to see a really cool TLC mod for an upgrade for the Carno, there is actually someone has made it. I will be putting it in the description down below, and everything about that mod is exactly what this creature is, which I'm going to go over right now, exactly what the Carnotaur needs. So usefulness, I believe this Carnotaur needs a speed buff when it's running, because if you look at scientific proof and also kind of in its dossier, it does suggest that it gets faster over time with its sprinting. At the moment, it has 1 base speed and it's very slow. It's actually extremely slow. So if we had something like that, that would also add a usefulness to it. And also its right click ability, its headbutt. It doesn't do too much damage as of right now, but with the TLC update, with the mod I suggested, it has a kind of a bleed if you're running. And I believe if you add that to the base game Carnotaur, it would actually be pretty cool and also interesting. Granted, the limitations of you needing to be running and then also being able to hit butt at that time is greatly very nice. And last but not least, in that TLC mod, it does scare smaller predators array like raptors, baryonyxes, etc. So that would also be kind of a unique and kind of cool thing with a roar, you know? I don't know, I think that would be a nice little feature for the Carnotaur, and it would also be well needed. But yeah, if you guys have any other suggestions for changing for this guy, please put them in the comments down below, because he needs some love, man. He's a terrible looking creature at the moment, but you know, I think Wildcard could definitely do some TLC love with this guy. He definitely needs it. Alright, the Allosaur. Personally, this is going to be one category, because I also think its texturing, its animations, and its usefulness in game right now is superb. It's used for all of that. The only thing I honestly think it needs is a sound fix. It has the loudest footsteps in the game for such a tiny creature. The Giga still doesn't overpower its quality of sound with this. This is very loud. They just need to do a sound tweak on it, and that's honestly it. That's all I wanted to mention with the Allosaur, because I personally think it is in a great spot right now. It is very useful as a Carnotaur, and it's very useful. I mean, it's used for boss fights and everything, so it is a very overall around a very good Carnotaur, and nothing really needs to be fixed or changed on it except for its sound. needs to be fixed really bad. All right, and last but not least we got in this category is the Giga itself. Now, we already know the Giga is the prime peak, you would say, for end game of taming of difficulty, right? The Giga should be the hardest thing to tame and honestly the most useful thing. As of right now, we know that it's had a lot of different balancing issues throughout the years of it being out. For one, it's been overpowered. For one, sometimes, other times it's been underpowered. I personally think its usefulness is one of the best creatures they've ever made, but it does lack on the other two qualities. For one, its animation and sound definitely need a lot of fixing, because if you look at it now, when it walks, it stutter steps, and its sound quality does not match up even at all with it when it's stepping, and also just basically whenever it's just sitting there. I personally think both of those can definitely use some love, and texturing and modeling, hell yeah, let's get a brand new Giga skin, I would say. I mean, personally, its model is not really too bad. It doesn't have any kind of tearing or slits or anything of it when it was made, but I think it definitely could use a little bit of a TLC texturing update just to give it some more light. And also kind of add some new color variations to it, because as you know right now, it kind of only has like a couple color regions and a lot of it doesn't make sense. Like for instance, its head area, it's like the little pokey things coming out of its head. I don't even know what the hell they're called. The scales, you would say, I guess you would call them. You know, those could be using a different color region and just have it some more flair. But other than that, I think giving it a tiny bit of a model rework, but not really too much of one, and also just a really good texture update would just fit it so well. But I think its animation and sound is the biggest thing it needs as of right now. It's that it's just all over the place, it doesn't match up, and it just doesn't sound good. So I think the Giga just needs an animation and sound. But what do you guys think in the comments down below? I know it's a big creature in the game, and it's a big part of everyone's playstyle, so I would like to hear what you guys think about it, because yeah, definitely needs an update. Alright, next let's talk about Mammals. Now, I'm only taking 2 Mammals because last TLC we had a lot of the Mammals get reworked, so I'm just going to be focusing on 2 that missed the rework, because obviously they got a lot of TLC love last time, but they don't need it that much this time. Let's give it to the dinosaurs actually. So let's talk about the Mammoth. The Mammoth, oh boy. Alright, so the usefulness, it is quite literally the best wood farmer, you would say, for base game, right? Obviously I would like it to be a little bit better on its weight reduction, more than like a beaver, and also maybe even more than any other creature in the game for wood gathering, and its speed could probably also be increased, but that would be under animation and sound because it's kind of its movement and stuff. But usefulness, it is very good right now, but it could be improved by giving more weight reduction and also maybe even more harvesting bonuses than the beaver. And I also think the beaver, the Castro, could also be a little bit less difficult to tame because of its kibble and its timer, so maybe switch the timers and stuff around, making the beaver, yes, less useful and making the Mammoth also more useful. Maybe even adding a platform saddle to the back, because that would also be kind of cool. A small one. We've seen that the Astrocetus has a 1x1 platform saddle, so they have been experimenting with different size platform saddles, so why don't we add one to the Mammoth? You know, maybe like a 4x4. I don't know, I think it'd be kind of cool. Its animations and sound are horrendous. Those would definitely need a TLC update, because as of right now they do not meet the standards of other creatures in the game. They're just awful, and if you've seen a mammoth, you'll hear it. It doesn't sound like a mammoth, it sounds like a drowning elephant. So it definitely needs some sound quality, and the animation, I mean, that comes with the modeling and texture, because I do think it does need that, which we can just go right into that. Its model is awful. It looks like it's a clay figure. It hugely needs a TLC update. I'm surprised it never got one in the first place from before. If you guys remember, this thing used to not have fur before they added the fur textures to base game for all fur kind of creatures. And it kind of looked better before, but now it just doesn't look good. For one, some of its fur texturing is not working on its face area. It's freaking it just looks like a clay model with its tusk and everything. I mean, it just needs a full model rework, and honestly just texturing. Everything about it just needs to be completely reworked and made new. If you look at real life mammoths and all that kind of stuff, this doesn't quite it doesn't really actually look like a mammoth. It looks like it's a Frankenstein mammoth with this little big head. But I mean, that is ARK Survival Evolved. They're not always 100% accurate to what the real life thing was, but I feel like we should, because we have so much evidence of what a mammoth actually does look like in real life. So the mammoth needs a complete modeling and texture overhaul. Its animation does need an update, its sound needs an update, and its usefulness could be improved by adding more weight reduction on wood, maybe even more bonus on wood gathering, and even adding a little very tiny option for a small platform saddle in the back, because it does have that room for it. I think it would be cool. I don't know. What do you guys think in the comments down below? All right, so last with the mammals is the Megalosaurus. Now, this is the deer. I personally think its usefulness is quite good in game. It's more about the fact of its actually modeling, texture, and kind of sound and animation. For one, the female looks like it's been a male that was head got cut off with its antlers, and it just looks really weird. Now, granted, I don't know what the scientific wording or how they actually looked like, the female versions, but I'm assuming they don't just look like someone sawed them off and just called it good. They're perfectly clean cuts. Obviously, this was a thing that they did this because people were critically telling them that it wasn't right, but they now need to actually make it look good, because a lot of people do use them and it just looks dumb, the female version. And obviously, if you don't know, the female is actually quite faster than the male. The male can harvest a lot of thatch, and it is quite useful. So they do have two different kind of boundaries and different balancing. But I personally think its animation could also be improved a little bit. But mostly, the female one definitely needs a complete overhaul of making it look like a female. It just looks like a male that lost its antlers. And I think it just looks weird. Really weird. And I think everyone can agree it just needs a model update. Alright, so let's go to aquatic creatures. Let's start with the Megalodon. The Megalodon, its usefulness is actually quite good. It's very useful for mid-game to also late game to even beginning game. It's not in hard to tame, and they're quite plentiful everywhere, every arc pretty much. Except for obviously extinction, because there is no ocean. Its animation and sounds could definitely use a big upgrade, because it does lack the quality of the newer versions of creatures being added, and its modeling textures superbly need a new upgrade. It has not aged too well. Its texturing is definitely very bad when you look at it for long periods of time. You might kind of fall into the ocean because of it, but its modeling, it just needs, I feel like it just needs to be more of a scarier looking thing. Granted, it's just basically a big shark, but in real life the Megalodons could get humongous, and I mean, ours is very smaller in this base game, but I mean, it just could use a TLC update and look a little bit better, maybe a little bit more scary, and also maybe a new I don't know, maybe a new feature for it. Maybe let's add something new to it. Now, granted, the Megalodon, if you did add something new like a bleed or some sort of, like, I don't know, new animation of an attack like jumping out of the water, it could lead to different play styles of playing, because as of right now it is very balanced of a creature, I'd say. But if you add something new to it, it might kind of throw the balance of aquatic creatures. I'm not too sure how they would want to do that, but I definitely think it could use something cool, like a jump out of the water, snatching someone in the air or something. I think that'd be kind of cool, but I don't know how much of an animation or technical problem that would be for them, but it'd be kind of cool to see something that, you know, a Megalodon jumping out of the water with great force, snatching someone in the sky. I don't know. I think that'd be cool. But what do you guys think in the comments down below? The Leopardon. Now, I know a lot of people have never seen one of these and actually in the wild, because they're kind of very rare, and also they are not very useful at all. Their usefulness is basically tame it once, you get the little sparkle buff, you go to one of the drops, and it randomly changes its quality and also gives it random stuff. It's personally not very good at all because of that, because for one, it does not have a usefulness outside of doing that, and for two, it disappears or untames after 30 minutes. What can we do to change all this? Personally, I think his animations and sounds are perfectly fine, and his modeling and texturing, I think the texturing could be fixed a little bit, like its teeth, and maybe adding some more little color regions. But other than that, it's perfectly fine on all that. Its usefulness is what needs to be fixed. Now, in the dev kit itself, there is an actual saddle for this guy, and it looks like they were thinking about adding as a permanent tame, which they should have. So right now we don't actually get to keep it. If I were to change the Leopardon, I would actually make it as the first time you tame one, you get the buff, right? Or the first time you've tamed that one, you get the buff for, like, let's just say an hour, okay? Let's just make it an hour, solid hour. After that, it does not despawn and you actually get to keep it. Now, if you think about this, this would add a great deal need of new water creatures to the game. Right now, we are very lacking in aquatic creatures, and I'm very saddened that we didn't actually get a new one. Now, you could say the giant turtle is a water creature, but it really isn't, because it's not very good in the water. It only provides as a mobile base and also a water buff. Its attack and basically defense in the water is atrocious. This, on the other hand, could be very cool and useful if we actually have a usefulness. Letting it be a permanent tame after its hour, and also being able to add a saddle. I think people would adore and love the ability to actually keep one of these, because a lot of people have been wanting one since they've ever released, and you can't keep it, so what's the point of even trying to tame one when there is no point? So that's my case on this. I think overall its usefulness is the worst creature, honestly, in the game. But it could be improved by just tweaking some things, making it a permanent tame, giving it its saddle, and letting people actually have a new aquatic creature to run around and swim around in the ocean. There's no harm in it at this moment, I don't think. Let people have it. I think it'll be really cool, and it would also be really fun to actually have one in base game. Alright, last but not least for aquatic creature is the Mosasaur. The Mosasaur is very useful in base game. I don't think it really needs to be changed. It is the kind of alpha tame aquatic creature next to the squid for the water, so I don't think it needs to be changed on any of that. But its animations and sounds definitely need to be updated. Now, granted, as you can tell, like just looking at it right now, you can see it stuttering, okay? It needs an overhaul of its still animation, also kind of its swim animation, because it does have a lot of stutter when it's moving throughout the water and just sitting there. Its sound quality is not too bad, but it could be improved, and its modeling texture could also be improved. I think just a really new texturing quality on it would also just improve it. I don't think it really needs a modeling per se fix, because it does have all the criteria of being a really good model. It just needs, I think, just a fresh new coat of paint, you would say, for texturing. But other than that, I don't think it needs anything else. I just think its animation needs a great deal of fixing. But yeah, that's my opinion. What are yours? Alright, so I want to go over into DLC, you would say, creatures. Not really too much. It's kind of just only a few, which is going to be Scorch Earth creatures. And the first one I want to talk about is Thorny Dragons. Usefulness, it is very good. In my opinion, it is better than the beaver at gathering wood. It obviously, if the mammoth got a buff, the mammoth would be better, but I think this is also better than the mammoth. And it basically does have a mobile smithy as well, so it is very good. Animations and sounds, it's almost pretty much perfect. It has really good animations. The sounds are perfect in my opinion, should not change. Modeling, textures, this is where I would think it would need just a little bit of a visual update, just a little bit, because there are some parts of the Thorny Dragon that are very blurry and not up to par to what we have now. But other than that, that's kind of it. One thing I would do as a TLC for the Thorny Dragon is actually enable it as a hops, per se. I've played with a couple mods that added a tiny little jump to the Thorny Dragon, and adding this little feature to this little guy does make it feel a little bit more of a unique and actually a really good mount to actually get in Scorch Earth and also other maps. So adding just a little jump, I think, is needed and also would be nice. So what do you guys think? If what would you change in the Thorny Dragon? Do you think it needs some more or less for a TLC? I don't know. Find out. I don't know. I want to hear in the comments down below. The Megalosaurus. So this creature has a lot of problems, but also benefits. Usefulness, it is the berry gatherer for kind of, you'd say, Scorch Earth. It does have a water tank because it is a camel, and it's relatively okay of a speed mount, but not really too much. It could hold a lot of cargo if you're moving stuff around with bases, but other than that, it's not. That's kind of its usefulness maximum, I would say. Animation and sound, its animation is quite literally broken, and it's always been. It has a terrible stutter step, and it just doesn't move properly. Its whole animation walking cycle is just beyond repairing. It just honestly needs to completely refixed and reworked, because it really annoys me that this thing has been like this since it's been released, and it's really annoying. Modeling, texturing, I think is perfectly fine. It could have some, maybe some texturing or even some modeling fix, but I have not noticed nor see anything wrong with it at this moment. So I think it's fine with that, but I think it's mostly the animation properties of the Megalosauros really needs to be fixed. I mean, granted, we are getting a TLC. They don't mention it to be a TLC, so we don't know, but that's kind of my ifs and bits about the whole TLC with modded creatures, because I think the mantis and the moth are perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with them. So I think the thorny dragon could use a little bit, and also the Megalosaurus could definitely get reworked on its walking animation. I think it definitely needs some help with that. Alrighty, and with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that's it for the video. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like, subscribe, follow. The next video I want to do for the series, for the channel, for just a video is actually, we have been announced that Crystal Isles will be an official mod map, being ported over to be an official map for console and also PC. But they're also going to be adding a new dinosaur. They did not say mammal or creature, they said dinosaur. So I want to do a video about which dinosaur I think could be added to Crystal Isles to suit it. Now granted, I know a lot of people think about, when you're thinking about Crystal Isles, you think about the crystal wyverns and stuff and the crystal griffins. Those sadly I'm pretty sure will be taken out, but we'll talk about that in another video in the near future about which creature I think they'll be adding to Ark Survival, which dinosaur it will be. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like, subscribe, follow, and we'll see you guys on the next one.